Hey, it's Andrew Downs. I'm proud to support Three Beards Media, and I would love to work with you. If you need merchandise for your company, organization, band, softball team, whatever, I can help. From name brand apparel to promotional items, large orders or small, online stores, and more, I can help your brand stand out. AKC Marketing is local, based in Johnston, and we are an employee-owned business, so our costs are low and our turnaround times are fast. But most importantly, we give you personal service to make sure you get exactly what you're looking for. Email me at andrew@akcmarketing.com or find me on social media, and let's make some cool stuff together. Now sit back and enjoy this Three Beards Media podcast.
Welcome in, everybody. It is CyHawk week. I'm Andrew Barber, and I have a special guest host with me tonight, Drew Shipley. Congrats to him. He's having his bachelor party. So we sub in Ben Applegate, who some of you might know from Three Blind Refs. And he's also an avid listener of this show, avid supporter of all Three Beards Media. Ben, you do an awesome job on Three Blind Refs. I'm happy to have you here. How are you doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for having me tonight. I really appreciate you asking me to step in, and pretty excited to talk some Hawkeye stuff tonight.
Yeah, well, we will do plenty of that. Before we get to the CyHawk game, let's mention some other just quick Hawkeye news and notes. Caitlin Clark, we got to talk about her, man. I know it's kind of weird to lead off a CyHawk show talking about someone who's no longer wearing an Iowa uniform, but she notched another triple-double. She's got her fever in the playoffs. It's her second triple-double. I think she's the only rookie to ever do that. She's got the Rookie of the Year locked up. She's somewhere in the MVP race. It's just a weird thing that I feel like we got to open up the show with.
I love it. I think, that fits right in with our Three Blind Refs podcast. We're actually going to talk to her head coach from high school tonight. And so absolutely, I'm excited to talk about Caitlin. And I watched last night's game, and it was crazy. Like, I felt like she even started slow a little bit. And I was like, and then she just second half was unconscious. And really, it was kind of funny how that last rebound kind of fell into her lap a little bit. I was almost like, sag a little. I'm screaming at the TV like they're gonna miss the shot. So it was fantastic to see that, and man, what a thing that she's doing for the WNBA.
Yeah, like you talked about, a little bit of a slow start, and I always kind of wonder sometimes if it's maybe a little bit of a design kind of a thing. It's get my teammates rolling early and often, and then I get rolling a little bit later. Some of the great ones, they would kind of do that. They would kind of know when their moment was, and then they would take over.
Yeah.
And I feel like Caitlin Clark's got that same thing kind of going on. It's like, well, now the game's actually truly on the line. It's time to take over. We saw that with Steph in the Olympic basketball.
Yep.
And Caitlin Clark has that same kind of thing going on.
I agree completely. And that some of the passes she's making, we talked, I think a lot of talk early in the season was, turnovers and different things. And I think it took her team a lot of the season to get used to her and her passes. And one, for instance, that really sticks out in my mind last night was that kind of behind the back as she went to the rack to Boston for the lay-in. And I was like, man, that's incredible,
Yeah. that's how you know someone's just in the flow when they're just doing something like that on the fly. They're not even really thinking about it. That's how you can tell that it's someone that thinks through the game at just like a higher level than other people do.
For sure.
So
and
yeah,
they've all caught, her teammates have all caught on to that, and I think they even passed together better as a team. I think I saw some backdoor cuts last night I thought that were incredible, where I think Boston passed to the leading Mitchell, on a back, and I was like, man, I don't know that they would have done that prior to Caitlin kind of doing all this stuff with them. So
yeah, Aaliyah Boston's passing has gotten a lot better as
for sure
gone on.
For sure.
I don't know what has made that change kind of happen, but she's racked up some pretty decent assist numbers for a post player.
Yeah,
so that's definitely good. That's good. Well, let's get to CyHawk talk, and I think there's a lot of big storylines that we can touch on. So I'm just gonna bring up one that I think is going to be a huge piece of this game, and I think that's Kirk Ferentz coming back from a week 1 suspension. I think that's going to play some sort of factor in this year's CyHawk game. To what extent do you think Kirk coming off of a week 1 suspension will play a factor in this year's CyHawk game?
I think, as a Hawkeye fan, we've learned over time how much respect all of the players that have ever played for the man, most of the players, right, that have played for the man, have for him. And I think it will definitely bring more to the table than maybe just the normal CyHawk kind of gusto, I guess, if that makes sense. That's what I think. Does that last 2 plays? Does it last all game? I'm not sure, but I think there's something to it for sure.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of at, was how long does that last? I think it's important for Iowa to get off to a quick start.
Yep,
because
for sure.
That kind of momentum can propel you to a quick start, but you got to get off to that quick start, not the slow start that we had last week.
Yep, for
that
sure.
Kind of a thing, Iowa can survive that because they have the defense and the special teams to survive that kind of a slow start against virtually any opponent.
Yep.
But you'd rather not. You'd rather get out to a lead, and then the defense can really do a lot of damage because you're out to a lead, which is what happened last year. So
right.
Iowa got out to that 17-0, 20-3 lead. And then from that point, you never really felt like the game was in doubt last year up in Ames.
Right. Right.
Things were, yeah.
Do you think, based on some of that, what you just said, we saw them actually defer the coin flip last weekend. If Kirk's back and wins, did they take the ball like they have in the past again, now that Kirk is back?
Yeah, I think they do. I think they're confident. That offense is kind of confident, and Tim Lester will probably want to put that offense right on the field right away. And that's another. There's just a couple, 3, 4 big storylines, I think. So Kirk Ferentz coming off the suspension is one. The second thing I think is Tim Lester. I don't think we've seen the whole bag of what Tim Lester brings to the table because we didn't really need to.
I would agree. I don't think they tried to show anything at all in the first half, which is a good thing. In second half, I wouldn't say that they showed a lot, but maybe they just did the things better, all of the things, which started, I think, with Cade not throwing off his back foot, setting his feet, things like that. So,
yeah. Here's how it was different last week. So last year, Iowa averaged 6% motion on their plays per game. 6% motion. Last week, they were around 60% motion on their offense.
Really?
60% of their plays had some sort of motion.
I guess
pre-snap.
What's interesting is, listening and reading everything kind of preseason, they alluded to that a lot. And I guess as I watched it, I don't know that I noticed it, every play, but obviously if it's 60%, that's a lot.
Yeah. And that kind of thing can put a lot of stress on a defense, which leads me to kind of my next point, and that's the injuries for Iowa State.
Yep.
Specifically Caleb Bacon, Will McLaughlin. They're going to have some inexperienced linebackers.
Yep.
And they play a 3-3-5 scheme. And so that motion, that can really confuse you in the run game, the pass game. In the run game, you got to have your run fit like down to science.
Right.
You got, as a linebacker, you got to know exactly what gap you're covering, and motion and everything like that can make it kind of confusing pre-snap. Okay, what gap do I have now? Or I maybe guess at this gap, and now all of a sudden the running back's off for 15 yards because I hit the wrong gap. I think that is kind of where Iowa has an advantage when they have the ball, because Tim Lester knows that those linebackers are younger and inexperienced. He's going to design something that can take some sort of advantage of that. Also, on that note, I mean, last week, Iowa State's leading tacklers, it was all of their defensive backs against North Dakota. So North Dakota was able to take advantage of Iowa State.
Right.
In that regard, they ran for 170 yards, and that was an offensive line that was breaking in 4 new starters.
Yep. And really control the line of scrimmage and the time of possession, which was a big thing. You know, it didn't come out in the scoreboard, but it definitely, you know, if I was able to consistently drive like that, it'll be a game changer, I think, for sure.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. So those are the two big things I wanted to hit on. I'll kick it to you. What are some big storylines, some other things that you really see going into this game?
I think it'll be interesting to see how well Lester, you know, and all the things that you already talked about with emotion and play calling, but do they look to attack those weaknesses? And maybe does Iowa State even change up what they're doing a little bit as far as, you know, the lineup and how they line up on defense? I mean, would they do something similar to Iowa where maybe they bring in a cash position or something like that? You know, that's a wrinkle that maybe they haven't had in the past. So I'm curious to see how that kind of chess game plays out a little bit. And then I think it'll be curious, you know, getting your best wide receiver back potentially. And on top of that, you're probably going to start, you know, you're probably going to start your best running back, I would say, who only got to play a half last week. So I think not only does your play calling get bigger, you try to take advantages of those injuries, and now you maybe have even better play or athletes on the field. So I think some big things can happen for Iowa if they get some momentum early. Like, to your point, like they can't start out 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, because Iowa State will definitely try to take advantage of that.
Yeah. And I'm glad you touched on Caleb Brown coming back from the week 1 suspension too. So we talked about Kirk, but I think Caleb Brown is big because he's the wide receiver with the most upside out of anybody in this room. He's the highest rated wide receiver that Iowa has ever gotten in recruiting. Highest rated wide receiver ever.
I did not know that.
High 4-star, borderline 5-star. So he's the highest rated wide receiver we've ever had at Iowa.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that led into another 4-star, borderline 4-star guy, wide receiver, just commit right after the game this week too. Like, what Iowa fan in their right mind would have ever thought something like that would happen?
No, yeah, not me. I knew we were in on Terrence Smith. That's who you're referencing. I knew that we were in on him and that we had a chance. It was down to Iowa and Minnesota. After Minnesota's week 1 performance and Iowa's week 1 performance, it couldn't be 2 more different performances, but also Terrence Smith is showing up for this game even after committing.
Right.
So that's a huge deal, right? Our wide receivers showed signs of life, like we talked about in the post game, I think, with Drew. 3 wide receiver touchdowns in 1 week when we had 3 all of last year.
Yes.
And we were missing our best wide receiver, presumably, in Caleb Brown.
Right.
So I'm interested to see one kind of how many snaps Caleb Brown gets. I've heard Kirk say things like maybe he's going to play a limited number of snaps, but I don't really know if you get him going early, if he has maybe a couple, 2-3 catches going in like the first quarter, I think you got to keep him in for more snaps, kind of ride maybe a little bit of a hot hand there.
Yeah.
Last week, Iowa played a lot of 2 tight end because they felt good about Gill and Vander Zee. We were missing Caleb Brown, Seth Anderson, who's still out. But I think they might play a little bit more 3 wide with Caleb Brown back.
I could see that. And I think the success that Iowa maybe had with Vander Zee last week and Gill really even too, I think that could open some things up. Especially when you bring Brown back into the mix, it'll be interesting. Like maybe we have another 2 touchdown day out of a wide receiver or 3 touchdown. Let's get greedy.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get greedy. I just think it's good that we have multiple red zone targets too, because Vander Zee is a good red zone target. So is Lachey.
Yes, for sure.
So we have at least 2 guys that we feel good about in the red zone. And we feel good about our depth at wide receiver now. Right. I like Caden Weechin, but he's our 4th wide receiver.
Right.
I like him.
I could see him doing an end around or something this week, or maybe some wide receiver screen type stuff for sure, coming in on special plays.
Right. So I think all of that goes to say you can't really stack the box against Iowa.
Right.
I know that is maybe what Iowa State will try to do, and I think it's a smart strategy still. But based off week 1, I think Cade can kind of make you pay for that. And another big story for me is the health of Cade McNamara.
Yep.
Last year, at no point in time was Cade McNamara 100% healthy.
Right.
Even before he went out for the year, he was maybe playing at 70-80%, if we're being generous. I think after that Kids Day injury, I think that really limited him in a big way.
For sure. I agree.
So you're getting a healthy Cade. Last year, he wasn't necessarily good in this game, but he was good enough to win.
Yep.
Up in Ames.
Yep.
I think having him at a healthy, 100%, I would say, and being able to make some throws that we haven't seen out of an Iowa quarterback since probably Nate Stanley.
Yeah, would agree.
Yep. That's a big advantage. Like, I would give the quarterback edge to Iowa State, if I'm being honest, Rocco Becht, but I don't think it's that big of a gap. I just don't see it being that big of a gap. But it's not like the quarterbacks play each other either.
Right. I do hope that they take advantage of that, bringing those extra defenders up early, that they kind of take a shot or 2 to get Cade in a rhythm and maybe break one so that Iowa State has to back off some right away, rather than kind of play in Iowa State's hands a little bit and just pound the rock into the line, the first 10 plays or whatever. I hope they try to open it up that very first series at least once, just to break that mold a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, you have to break that mold, but also I'd like to see not so much like the vertical. Well, I do want to see vertical passing, but quick passing. I think we saw a lot of that. We saw Iowa attacking the middle of the field in the passing game, which wasn't something that they designed to do last year at all.
Right.
Really, they were trying to attack the boundaries in the passing game, not the middle of the field at all.
I'm not sure what they were attacking last year.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the point. That's the point. So I don't know. I mean, I hate to base too much off of 1 week here for both teams, because I don't think you can really do that.
No.
Strange things happen in this game, right? We've seen weird things. But if the Iowa offense is truly improved, I just think that gives such a big edge to Iowa, because that allows that defense that we know is good
Right.
the rest, and really they don't have to defend as many plays of Iowa State, because last year, look this up, Iowa State ran the ball 29 times and they threw 44 times. So they ran 73 plays on us, and we maybe ran 50 plays on them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge difference.
Right. That's a lot of wear and tear on a defensive player.
But we held up really well, even considering all of that. If it's more even,
go ahead.
In terms of like plays and time of possession, if it's more just like dead even, I think that's a big advantage of Iowa.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think I think everybody would agree that Iowa's defense is the best unit in this game. I think we would probably also agree that Iowa State's offense would be the next best unit. But you're right. I think if Iowa is just average or above average on Iowa on offense compared to what they have been, that gap narrows a long way, like you said. So if we're incrementally better offensively, hopefully they no turnovers, no bad penalties, and they take care of business for sure.
Yeah, there's a huge key for this game is we've won the turnover battle in this game for the better part of the past decade.
For sure.
So we've won 7 of the last 8 of the last 10. And I think in that time frame, Iowa's thrown 3 interceptions and Iowa State's thrown 11.
Wow.
In that same time frame. So that is kind of been the story. And also fumbles. There's been some fumbles for Iowa State in there. Fumble for Iowa too.
Right. Fumble on the goal line, I believe, wasn't it, for Iowa?
Goal line. Yeah.
The punt return fumble for Iowa State where they tackled their own guy.
Wish we would never ever bring that up again, but we have to, and I can feel the comment coming from but you've lost 3 of the past 5 in Iowa City, David Larson says. Hang on. I have to think about this. Well, yeah, we didn't play in 2020. Iowa would have won in 2020. It's fine. So we'll count that as a win. But we lost 2014. We lost 2022. Yeah, we had one of the worst offenses of all time in 2022. Didn't get much better in 2023. We still won. Yeah, I think Iowa State's quarterback and wide receivers are good. I do not have a lot of confidence in their offensive line. They have a lot of injuries, and they were not able to get a steady running game against North Dakota. I did some more research here as well. Last year, they ran 29 carries for 81 yards against Iowa. A lot of that was Norton and Sanders. Those guys are gone. Sama will be probably the main guy. He ran 8 for 24 yards against Iowa last year. I think that's kind of been a hallmark of Iowa State's non-conference losses over the past year. They couldn't run the ball against Ohio. They couldn't run the ball against Memphis. They couldn't, those kinds of things.
Right.
But you can't abandon the run. You can't have Rocco throwing 50 times against an Iowa defense either. So I don't think Matt Campbell's going to abandon the run game at all. He's going to try to use the run game,
right,
and hope that it gets going. And I just don't see it.
It's an interesting. As an opposing coach facing Iowa, it has to be interesting trying to figure out what to do, especially if the teams are fairly even on paper, which I think they probably are for the most part. Like to your point, are we going to run Abu Sama 20 times? If he's netting 2 yards a carry or something like that, or 3 yards a carry, or are you going to do the things that Iowa allows you to do and throw 40 passes and bend, but not break like they always do? But as you know, the risk with when you throw more and more passes, the risk of having a turnover against Iowa's defense becomes greater and greater, really, I think. So I sure wouldn't want to have to face Iowa, especially in Iowa City, especially with this defense. It'll be a challenge.
Yeah, I agree. There's just so many different ways we can slice this thing up. We can cook this thing up. That's what I think it kind of comes down to is like it's a tale as old as time, like line of scrimmage play.
Yep.
Going to be a huge factor, I think, in this game. And it is in every game.
Yep.
I think when the offensive line for Iowa State's on the field, I'd give the advantage to Iowa. And when the offensive line for Iowa is on the field, I think the Iowa State defensive line is good. I think they're solid. I'm just curious to see what you said about them maybe playing 4 down. I think they might have to consider it with the linebackers.
Right.
They're going to have to consider like a 4-2-5 more.
Right.
In this game.
I don't know enough about Iowa State to know this, but, is their D-line depth better than, say, their linebacking depth? Because it sounds like their depth at linebacker isn't very good right now.
I do know enough to know that their defensive line depth, they feel way more confident about that than they do about their linebacker depth at this point. But
is that something you just throw in on a whim for, your 4 practice days or 5 practice days? I don't know if you can be successful doing that.
That's my question, is like, that can't be easy to implement if that's not something that you've done before.
Right.
You can't just go in against a quality opponent like Iowa and do that on the fly. I think that's a really tough ask, even if you do feel good about the 4 guys that you're going to put out there.
Right. Okay, I have a question for you when you're talking about offensive line here.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about Iowa's O-line having a ton of experience, like, what was it, 115 game starts or something like that. Do you feel like they are good? Maybe not good, great. Because sometimes experience doesn't necessarily mean you're good. And they've clearly struggled for several years. Now there's been some injuries and different things. But did you feel like in game 1, from what you saw, that they performed better than they have?
Yes, they have performed better.
Okay.
In one game, I would say that it looks better.
And I, not to foil you on this, because I agree with you, but I took out Caleb Johnson's 2 big runs just to kind of see where we fell. Because, again, it didn't feel like at the time like we were just, molten, just kind of plotted a little bit through the line, 2 or 3 yards. It didn't feel like we were doing a lot. But if you take away Caleb's 2 big ones, an 18-yard touchdown and a 64-yard touchdown, we still ran for 4.2 average per rush. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not where you would maybe want to be, but it's not awful.
It's not like it has been, for sure. It's well above normal for when I say normal, the last couple years.
Yeah. True. Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. I think it helps to not have your left tackle playing with a broken leg. Mason Richmond was playing with a broken leg for most of last year. I think that's helpful. I think Logan Jones is less injured. I mean, just they're healthy. Right?
Have you heard anything about Logan Jones? Because wasn't he injured for a bit last Saturday?
Yeah, I think he might have been injured. But I have a lot of faith in Ellsbury. Ellsbury's looked good at that center spot too. And at times even like he's looked better than Logan Jones.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which is like, I don't think it's that big of a drop off even. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard about Logan Jones, his status, and we probably won't learn about that until about 2 hours before kickoff.
That's right. Although, aren't they supposed to put out like the NFL kind of injury report? Aren't they supposed to have that?
Yeah, 2 hours before kickoff.
Oh,
not a minute before. I think it's the Big Ten says 2 hours before kickoff you put out your injury report.
How is that helpful at all?
It's not. It's not, but it's the only injury reports that we get in college football.
Right.
No other team puts out an injury report.
That's fair.
No other conference. I should say. But All right. I think it's a good time to take a little bit of a breather here, and we will come back with more CyHawk talk and wrap this thing up.
Making great tasting bourbon requires the perfect combination of ingredients, conditions, and time. The longer it rests, the better it tastes. Revelton Distillery's new single barrel bourbon is made from 80% corn, sourced 100% from Iowa farmers. And unlike mass-produced bourbons, each barrel of Revelton's single barrel bourbon is unique, proofed on when it tastes best. As they like to say, it'll be ready when it's ready. And to ensure the highest standards of quality and flavor, owners Rob and Christy Taylor oversee the production and bottling. Every single barrel. Iowa-born, Iowa-aged, Iowa-bottled. Try the new single barrel bourbon from Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com. Whether you're buying, selling, or refinancing your home, or if it's simply time to renovate the one you're already living in, you need an experienced mortgage professional to help you analyze your financing options and to make sure the closing goes smoothly. And that's exactly what you get when you call Kyle Lehman at Wintrust Mortgage. Kyle's experience and expertise, coupled with Wintrust's rates and programs, ensures you'll get the mortgage that's right for you. You may even qualify for down payment assistance. Before you reach out to a realtor, call Kyle and get pre-qualified, empowering you to start shopping for the home of your dreams. Call Kyle at 515-473-0546. Kyle Lehman, Wintrust Mortgage, 515-473-0546. In 2023, a crack Green Beret named Dan Douglas retired his military command and promptly escaped to a full-time career in real estate. Today, this man is wanted by home buyers and sellers who want to survive the process without spending a fortune. If you have a home to sell or want to buy one, maybe you can hire Dan Douglas at Green Beret Realty. You can find him at greenberetrealty.com. greenberetrealty.com.
All right. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Man, that Green Beret always gets me. I love the A-Team music.
No doubt.
All right. Coming back, I was thinking we've gone to the present. We've talked a lot about the present, this year's edition of the game, and we'll give our predictions before we get out of here. We'll save that for the end. But I kind of want to dive into the past and ask you, first of all, you ever been to a CyHawk football game?
Oh, yeah.
Give me your favorite one that you've actually physically been to.
I'm blanking on the year, but it was actually in Ames. We got, I don't even know how we scored these, but I think we set like fifth row kind of at the corner of the end zone. And it was, it might've been that like 40 to 21 game or something. That'd have been around Sash's time, maybe. Just, I guess for me, like the excitement of kind of kicking their ass at their own place was fantastic.
09? Are you talking about 09, 35-3?
Actually, that might have been it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because Sash had multiple, like,
yes.
from Austin Arnaud.
Yes. Yep. That's right.
That was like the one that I can remember in my lifetime that I wasn't able to watch because I couldn't actually physically go. And it was on some no-name channel. It was on FCS Central. Like, the CyHawk game was not on ESPN or ABC or CBS like it is this year.
Right.
It was on, like, some channel that you specifically had to subscribe to on, like, a special cable package.
And that was so far back where cable was a thing, like nobody would subscribe for anything back then.
Right. Yeah.
It was unheard of.
I was in college at the time when we had cable, but the college wasn't springing for the package that had this channel. They weren't like Central College. I love you, but you weren't springing for that channel.
No.
So I watched that game on ESPN, like Gamecast on my computer, basically.
That's funny.
Yeah.
How about you? What's your favorite?
Well, I held season tickets from 2015 through 2019 of Iowa football. So I can only speak about 2016 and 2018. 2016, I believe we won like 42-3. CJ Beathard put on a
That's
show.
it. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. CJ Beathard put on an absolute show. That was just such a talent mismatch that year. That was bad. It was bad.
We had season tickets for like, it's probably 6, 7, 8 years, kind of before kids happened. So we used to tailgate and me and some college buddies used to try to go to different stadiums in the Big Ten when we could, before we kind of all got married and had kids. So I've tried to hit a lot of games, but yeah, that's one of those I really remember. So
yeah. Now I guess we started with the good. Maybe we can drift off to the bad. What's the worst CyHawk game that you have ever been to?
I'm trying to think here. So my daughter would have been born. It was probably, I don't think I was at 23-3. Wasn't that when
Yeah, that was when Tate got injured.
Yes, right. And was it Manson? Manson had to come in. I remember watching that one. I don't think I was at it. So I'm not sure that I've been to a bad one. But the year we got married was 2001, was the year that 9/11 happened, and the game was in November, and we were on our honeymoon.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I remember that game, and that was obviously a big Debbie Downer. Yeah, that was terrible.
Okay. 01. You're talking
01. Yep.
01. I do not remember 01.
17-14, and that was
they had to have Seneca at that time, right?
Yeah, it was Seneca. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. But that was Seneca and Ames. We almost won.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I can tell you my worst memory.
Okay.
I was a 14-year-old young man, and it was one of my first Iowa football games that I had ever been to. And it was in the year 2002.
Okay.
And I was partying and going nuts at halftime, and I was having the time of my life. It was a night game. And I was there for the Seneca Wallace comeback.
Yep.
Watching Iowa lose that game. It is one of the worst memories. But for some reason, that was I went to more games that year in 2002. Don't worry, that wasn't my only 2002 game. Good. I'm happy about that, because if that had been my only 2002 game, I don't know if I could have stayed an Iowa fan, because that was so depressing. As a 14-year-old young man, your emotions are all over the place in that kind of a scenario. So, man, witnessing that up close, I thought that meant Iowa was going to be bad. I thought the sky was falling, man. The sky was falling on that night.
Would you have traded a season like that for a win versus Iowa State?
No. I love
Agreed.
that season. Brad Banks was awesome. Still one of my favorite players. I just love that team, man. That team was just awesome. Because I did get the pleasure of being at the Purdue game and having tickets in the end zone, very close to where one Dallas Clark got the game-winning touchdown.
Nice. That's fantastic.
So I did get my redemption later in the year, getting to witness that moment. I also got to watch us crush Michigan State at home too.
Nice.
So
always good beating them.
Yeah, we absolutely crushed them in 2002. So I got to go to other games in 2002 where we crushed our opponents or won against Kyle Orton and the Purdue Boilermakers.
Mm-hmm.
That was the year that really hooked me on going to Iowa football games, because I hadn't gone before.
Yep.
That was how I was just hooked on, oh, wow, this is a fun time. This is a great time. So
I would say another one I wasn't at, but I blacked out the game, but Iowa State beating Iowa 27-9 in 1998, which was kind of the end of the run of Iowa's dominance, I guess. Let's see, that was 3, 4, 5, 6, 15 in a row prior to that game.
Yeah, that was end of Hayden Fry. I probably don't remember that because I didn't grow up with cable and I was 10 years old at the time.
I had just graduated from college, so I was out on my own. Yeah. So, yeah. And then Iowa State won 5 in a row then.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that because 2002 was the 5th one in a row.
Yep.
And in 2003, we ended up – no, we lost 2003 too, didn't we?
No, 2003 was 40-21. Iowa.
Yeah, that's it. That's the 40-21 that you were at.
Yes, that's the one I went to. Correct. 2003.
There you go.
Nailed it.
There you go.
See, at my age, you tend to forget things, so I had to look it up.
Yeah. Nate Chandler was the quarterback, right? Because he had just followed Banks.
Would Hinkle have been on the team too? I think Ed Hinkle.
Yeah. Oh man, I love Ed Hinkle. Yeah. I do remember watching guys like Tim DeWhite and Cedric Shaw and Liddell Betts, who's now a coach.
Yeah.
And Abdul Hodge. And man, it's all coming full circle for me. The guys that I watched play at Iowa are now coaches at Iowa.
Yep.
Kevin Casper, Ed Hinkle. Kevin Casper and Ed Hinkle are a big part of the reason why I'm an Iowa fan.
That's cool.
I love those guys.
Yep.
I don't know why, but young me latched onto those guys.
Yep.
Obviously Banks too and Dallas.
Right.
Clark. But yeah, those are the heydays. Another CyHawk game that just holds a lot of personal weight for me is that 2015 game, man. That was, if you remember, in the week leading up to that, that's when Tyler Sash passed away.
Yep.
Right before that game happened. So there was a lot of emotion, and Iowa was down, actually.
Right.
And ended up coming all the way back and winning 31-17.
Yep.
And then just kind of walking over arm in arm and grabbing that trophy together as a team. And Kirk's crying in the post game. And I grew up in Pella and graduated high school the same year as one Mr. Tyler Sash.
Sure.
I also was like a student coach, student manager for the Pella basketball team, Pella boys basketball team. So we had our fair share of standoffs with one Mr. Tyler Sash in basketball.
So you would have seen him twice a year, probably, right? Because of conference game.
Because it was a conference game at the time.
Yep.
I ended up not liking that guy in high school very much. I did not like that guy.
Was he cocky at the time because he was such a good athlete?
Yeah, he was extremely cocky at the time. So it became a complicated thing for me. Because, well, what I had heard is that like college kind of changed him. He kind of lost some of that cockiness. He kind of, really mellowed out and became a more down to earth person. But his mom tried to start a fight in the parking lot with one of our assistant coaches after we beat them our senior year at home. He kicked the med kit across the floor. Also, personally for me, he went diving for a loose ball into our bench, and I was sitting halfway down the bench, and I kind of just did one of those things where, like, you kind of just help a guy over the bench. Like, I didn't throw him, but I kind of just helped him go over the chairs.
We call that an assist, Andrew.
Yeah. And I was okay with that because of, I was immature too. I was just an 18-year-old kid. I didn't know any better. And my emotions ran hot too, even just not playing, but just being there on the sideline. I wanted to win so bad.
Yeah.
I didn't care. He got up, all right, but he gave me kind of a look. He gave me kind of a look and went, what the hell is that? But yeah.
Now you've dedicated your life to the Hawkeyes and love him. That's funny.
Yeah, it is funny. That is funny. I didn't meet him ever again after high school, unfortunately, before all that went down. So again, it's complicated for me. I ended up loving the guy.
Yeah. Yep. And gone way too soon.
Yeah. So RIP to that young man.
For sure.
So yeah, there's just a lot of emotion with this game. That was just extra for me though.
Did you, when you were growing up and maybe maybe even still, do you have friends, college friends, high school friends, buddies of yours that, you know, they're that guy, as soon as there's a win or loss, they call you, they text you, they're the biggest jerks in the world? Or has that dissipated?
Yes. And, you know, if I'm being honest, I'm that guy. I'm that guy. If we're being honest, I'm that guy. But I'm in a group chat with some buddies, and it's me as the Iowa fan versus the world, basically. And I don't understand it, but I end up becoming friends with Cyclone fans. I don't get it. I'm friends with so many Cyclone fans.
Oh, sure. I am too.
They're all great people. They're all great people. Like, I have no problems with them other than their team affiliation.
My brother actually went to Iowa State, and his wife went to Iowa State, and she's a big Cyclone fan, and he stayed a Hawkeye through it all. So I'm proud of him. But their kids, they just took them to their first Cyclone game. Their daughter, just this past weekend. So, but they have clothing for both sides. He dresses them sometimes, and she dresses them other times. So it's pretty funny how that all works out.
I am very thankful that I have a long-term girlfriend that is on my side, because and you know, probably future wife, for being honest.
Yeah.
So I won't have to deal with a divided house in that sense.
Yep.
I don't know if I could do it and not be childish about it.
Our office is very that way. We all chide each other. I mean, we're probably 50-50 Iowa State, so it's always fun.
I always struggle with that, being in an office where it's a little bit more divided, especially here in Central Iowa. I think living in Central Iowa, it's more of a split. But if I lived almost anywhere else in the state, like Eastern Iowa specifically, I wouldn't run into any Iowa State fans.
Right.
I wouldn't be friends with any Iowa State fans.
They're not bad people, mostly.
No, they're not. There's a few stinkers in every fan base.
Same. Yeah.
Iowa has their own. You know, I've seen some BS on Twitter this week that I've hated from Iowa fans. You know, I've seen BS from Iowa State fans that I've hated. I think what you got to do with this kind of rivalry is just realize that that's not the norm.
Yeah.
You know, the normal Iowa and Iowa State fan is not that wild Twitter troll hiding behind a burner account.
And I think in today's world of college football, it's sad to say a little bit, but I think you have to cheer for the other team when you're not playing them because of the new playoff. You need quality wins. And if Iowa wins this game and needs quality wins to get into the playoff, let's say, or vice versa, if Iowa State beats Iowa and needs quality wins to get into the tournament, then they need us to keep winning and we need them to keep winning. So it's kind of a different world in that sense a little bit.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's one thing I meant to bring up. There is playoff implications here
for sure
for Iowa, I think, because I think with the Big 12, a little bit with strength of schedule not being the greatest maybe now. Yep. I think it's Big 12 champion or bust. So I don't know Iowa State would love to win this game, right? I'm not saying it means nothing to them, because it means something to both teams. It's not but for Iowa, they need a non-conference win against a quality opponent.
Right. And I think that's
Iowa State is that.
That's fair. Iowa State has a manageable conference schedule.
Right.
Still tough for sure, but manageable. And Iowa really does too, except for Ohio State. And when you're looking down the barrel of that game, this game probably becomes all that much more important because you figure you're going to lose that Ohio State game.
Yes. And then the question becomes, if you're a 2-loss Iowa who are your 2 losses to? Well, is one to Ohio State. That's fine. That doesn't really hurt you. Losing to Ohio State on the road, but losing to Iowa State at home, I think, even if Iowa State, like, say, ended up in the Big 12 championship, but lost the Big 12 championship, that's a loss that would actually hurt because it's a loss to a non-playoff team at home.
Right.
Or, like, for example, if we lose to Minnesota, that's a horrible loss.
It's not happening.
Right? What?
It's not happening.
I know it's not happening. I'm just throwing out scenarios.
You're right. Yes. Yeah. Losing to Northwestern or whatever would be
right. Yeah.
It's not manageable.
For me, like, some people have said Iowa can still get in the playoffs at 10-2, and I just don't think I believe that because I think it's got to be 11-1 with a loss to Ohio State. Now, even if you lose big to Ohio State, I think you can still make the playoffs as an 11-1 Iowa.
I think so too. I think at 10-2, you have too many bad connotations from previous years' offenses or whatever, being kind of the laughing post of college football a little bit, that they're going to find a reason to not put Iowa in at 10-2.
Right. Well, we're not the laughing stock of offense anymore.
That's fair. That's far.
Florida State. Florida State is the new laughing stock of offense.
Did you see yesterday? I don't even remember where I saw it, but they paid like $12 million for their NIL players, and they're 0-2.
That is sad. And if I donated to the Florida State NIL, I would be demanding a refund.
I wonder. I mean, this will be an interesting case study down the road as NIL and all these things progress. But, like, I wonder if everybody thinks, well, we spent all this money, we've got this best team on paper, except they forgot to play hard. You know, like, is it the money? Is it they just didn't care? They just assumed they were going to walk in and win, or what? So, yeah.
I'm glad that even in the NIL era, as long as Kirk Ferentz is the head coach, I don't have to worry about Iowa not playing hard.
Yeah, that's fair.
They always play hard. It doesn't always look good, but they do. The effort is there.
Yep.
I don't have to worry about that. And don't get me wrong, Iowa spent money too on their roster. Not $12 million, because we don't have $12 million, but we spent money too.
And some not on our roster. Proctor.
Yeah. Oh, he didn't get that much. Thank you.
He got some though, I think, right?
Barely. Little. Not much. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. But yeah, that's it, man. Ben, it's been fun talking with you.
Yeah, for sure. I've enjoyed it.
I love talking with you. I know you got to run 3 Blind Refs later tonight, so everybody who's listening to this, go listen to 3 Blind Refs too, please.
Thank you.
It's a great podcast that I really enjoy, and you learn a lot about basketball officiating for sure.
Yeah, so, it's going to be an exciting night for us. I'm really looking forward to this one. So,
all right. Well, I'm gonna make my prediction and probably have egg all over my face come Saturday at 6 p.m. I can't wait. I said it in my preseason. You said this has Three Beards Media divided, causing a stir at Three Beards Media with my preseason prediction. But after week 1, I feel so much better about my preseason prediction. So much better. That I'm gonna stick with it. And
okay, what do you got?
I'm gonna say Iowa State can establish the run. They attempt to throw a lot, but the Iowa offense gets their thing going. The defense maybe scores, right? 27-3. I'm sticking with the Iowa 27-3 score. I think that might be a late field goal. Truthfully, I think some sort of trick play, special teams play has to happen for Iowa State to score a touchdown. I do not think they find the end zone, especially since I think they're going to have limited opportunities to do so because our offense is better. Our offense is going to be on the field a lot more than the past 6-7 editions of this game.
I hope you're right. And I mentioned this before we got on the air, is that you are the most optimistic Hawkeye fan I've ever met.
Yes. I'm saying what I'm saying, knowing full well that I'm the most optimistic. This could go wrong a million ways.
In fact, as I was watching last week, I typed a couple comments to you guys, and there was several times I just wanted to be like, Andrew, come on, man. You're acting like we're going to score 40 a game this year.
Sorry. That's how I am, man. I am just sunshine, pie in the sky. I admit it. I know it. I'm aware of it.
All right, so I've got Iowa State with 13. I think they do get a touchdown, kind of like you said, somehow. And it might even be early. Like I could see them maybe getting the ball, scoring quick, maybe like last weekend against North Dakota. Maybe it's in the first couple plays of the game. But then a couple field goals, maybe a missed field goal in there. I think they're going to have 13 points. And I'm trying not to go too far to the side of Iowa has this great offense. I want to continue to see it, to believe it a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm kind of between 16 for Iowa, but it feels too little. So I'm going to go Iowa 23-13. I think they do get 2 touchdowns. One of them, to your point, I think could be defensive, but I think they're going to get another one. So I'm going to go 23-13 Iowa.
I like it. It's cautious optimism. Either way, I think, Iowa is either -2.5, -3.5, wherever you look. I don't know if you're a gambling man, but if you are.
I am, but again, I don't ever touch this one because Hart's too invested in it.
That's fair. It's kind of a cardinal rule to not bet on your favorite team. So right. I don't highly recommend it, but feels too low. I'll just say
it does. It does. If it does hit low, then I think it's like I said, maybe it's a 16-13 type ugly, pukey game.
But if I hope not. If it's ugly, that's Iowa, right?
That's fair. That's fair.
If it's an ugly game, that's Iowa.
That's right. That's right.
I just so appreciate you hopping on here, kind of last minute. Appreciate having you.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thanks for being my friend and friend of the podcast.
You bet.
Appreciate you. We appreciate all our listeners. We appreciate all of our sponsors. We might be back with some post-game reaction. We'll see. Drew's kind of out of commission, so it might be me coming back on Saturday for all of you with some post-game reaction. We will see. But as always, have a great night, everyone, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.